Have you ever wondered why two of the greatest minds in psychology, Sigmund Freud and Carl Jung, started as close allies but ended up as intellectual rivals? Their friendship began with admiration, passion for the human psyche, and the dream of building a new science of the unconscious. Yet it collapsed into silence, betrayal, and disagreement so deep that it shaped the future of psychology itself. This is not just a story about two famous men. It's about two visions of the human soul. Freud believed our lives were driven by hidden sexual and aggressive instincts, a battle between the ego, and superego. Jung, on the other hand, believed there was something far greater beneath the surface, myths, symbols, archetypes, and a spiritual dimension within us that could never be reduced to biology alone. One man saw the unconscious as a dark cellar of forbidden desires. The other saw it as a vast cathedral of wisdom waiting to be discovered. Why does this matter to you today, sitting in your living room, scrolling through YouTube, searching for meaning in a world of chaos? Because the split between Freud and Jung mirrors the split inside each of us. Do we see ourselves as nothing more than a collection of urges and instincts, or do we dare to believe we are part of something larger, something sacred? The answer shapes how you live, how you love, how you dream, and how you suffer. Think of it this way. Freud explains why you struggle with habits, guilt, and hidden desires. Jung explains why you dream of flying, why you feel déjà vu, why you sense destiny calling. Freud teaches you how to survive in the modern world by managing impulses. Jung teaches you how to grow by embracing mystery. One speaks to the rational mind, the other whispers to the soul. And both voices still echo in the culture you live in, from therapy sessions to Hollywood movies, from motivational speeches to spiritual retreats. If you've ever sat in therapy and wondered, am I just broken because of childhood wounds, or is there something in me trying to be born? You've already felt this tension. That's Freud versus Jung alive in your own heart. Freud tells you to look backward, into childhood, into repression, into the past. Jung tells you to look forward, into dreams, symbols, synchronicities, into what your soul longs to become. This is why their story still matters, because the divide between them is the same divide in modern psychology, modern spirituality, and even in your personal life. When you are torn between being realistic and being hopeful, between analyzing your flaws and following your intuition, you are replaying Freud and Jung in miniature. It is a conflict older than you and bigger than you, and yet it plays out inside you every day. But let's not romanticize this too quickly. Their split was painful, personal, and dramatic. Freud once called Jung his crown prince, the heir to his empire of psychoanalysis. Jung admired Freud like a father figure. They exchanged hundreds of letters, full of excitement, ideas, and hope. And yet, when Jung began to insist that the unconscious was more than sexuality, that it carried a spiritual and mythological dimension, Freud accused him of betrayal. For Freud, science had to remain grounded in biology and materialism. For Jung, science that denied the soul was no science at all. Imagine that. Two brilliant men staring into the same abyss of the unconscious, but one saw only shadows of desire, while the other saw patterns of eternity. Their falling out wasn't just about theories, it was about what it means to be human. And here's the part that touches you directly. Whichever side you unconsciously agree with, you are shaping your destiny. If you lean toward Freud, you may see your struggles only as pathology, things to fix, traumas to manage. If you lean toward Jung, you may see your struggles as initiations, doorways into transformation, hints from the unconscious guiding you toward growth. Both perspectives have truth, but which one dominates your inner life may decide whether you stay trapped or break through. So as we begin this journey into the difference between Freud and Jung, I invite you to hold a question in your heart. Am I just a bundle of instincts trying to be controlled, or am I a soul unfolding toward wholeness? The rest of this video may not give you a simple answer, but it will give you a map, a way to understand why these two men matter, and why their disagreement is also your inner dialogue. Because at the end of the day, Freud and Jung are not just figures in history. They are archetypes in your psyche. Freud is the skeptic, demanding evidence, warning against fantasy. Jung is the seer, opening doors to dreams and mysteries. Both live inside you, and your task, perhaps, is not to choose one over the other, but to know when each voice is speaking and how to let them guide you without enslaving you. This, then, is where we begin. The story of Freud and Jung is not only about the past, it is about the choice you make every day to reduce yourself to biology or to expand yourself toward mystery. Stay with me, because what follows will not only explain their theories, but will illuminate the hidden crossroads inside your own life. Freud's vision of the human psyche was revolutionary for his time. He believed that beneath our polite behavior and conscious thoughts lies a raging world of instincts and repressed desires. To him, the unconscious was like a basement stuffed with forbidden cravings, mostly sexual and aggressive, that society forced us to hide. He described the mind as divided into three parts: the id, the ego, and the superego. The id is raw impulse, hungry for immediate gratification. The superego is the voice of authority, morality, and rules. The ego is the mediator, caught in the middle, trying to satisfy the id without breaking the laws of society or being crushed by guilt. In Freud's world, life is a constant negotiation between desire and restraint. Jung accepted this framework at first, but he soon realized that it was too narrow. He felt Freud had reduced the vastness of the human spirit into little more than biology and sexual tension. For Jung, the unconscious was not just a basement, it was an entire universe. He saw it as a realm filled with images, symbols, myths, and archetypes that have shaped humanity across all cultures. While Freud said our dreams were disguised wish fulfillment, Jung argued that dreams were messages from the unconscious, carrying wisdom, warnings, and pathways to growth. To him, the unconscious wasn't just a problem to be controlled, it was a partner to be engaged. Think of it like this: Freud's psychology is like learning to drive by focusing only on brakes and rules of the road. Jung's psychology is like learning to drive while also asking, where am I going? What's the purpose of the journey? Freud wanted to help people function in society, to tame their impulses so they could live without neurosis. Jung wanted to help people grow into wholeness, to listen to the deeper calling of their soul. Both goals are valid, but they point in very different directions. This difference came into sharp focus when they argued about religion and spirituality. Freud considered religion an illusion, a set of comforting stories that humanity invented to escape the harsh reality of life. Jung, however, believed that religion expressed real psychological truths. Myths and symbols, he argued, are not childish fantasies, but reflections of archetypes, universal patterns within the human psyche. When you dream of a wise old man or a nurturing mother, it is not simply wish fulfillment, it is the unconscious showing you timeless images that guide your development. Archetypes became the cornerstone of Jung's psychology. He saw them everywhere, in mythology, in fairy tales, in dreams, and in the roles people play in their own lives. The hero, the shadow, the lover, the trickster. These are not just characters in stories. They are living patterns that shape how we think, feel, and act. Freud might say that your recurring nightmare of being chased is just repressed anxiety from childhood. Jung would say it is your shadow trying to confront you, urging you to face the parts of yourself you deny. It is easy to think Freud and Jung were complete opposites, but in truth they complement one another. Freud gives us a language to understand repression, neurosis, and the hidden ways childhood shapes adulthood. Jung gives us a language to understand mystery, transformation, and the hidden ways the soul pushes us toward meaning. Together, they provide two lenses, one focusing on pathology, the other on potential. Imagine someone struggling with addiction. Freud might analyze the addictive behavior as the ego failing to manage the id, driven by unconscious desires and unresolved trauma. Jung, while agreeing in part, would add another layer. Perhaps the addiction is also a false substitute for a spiritual hunger, an attempt to fill the void left by an unlived life. Freud would treat the symptom. Jung would try to uncover the deeper calling beneath it. Both approaches reveal truth, but Jung's expands the field from survival into transformation. Another way to see their difference is through their approach to science. Freud wanted psychology to be as hard and measurable as biology. He insisted on keeping it materialistic, grounded in bodily drives. Jung was willing to step beyond into philosophy, religion, and even the mystical. To him, if science denied the symbols and synchronicities that shaped human life, then it was cutting itself off from reality. Freud feared Jung's openness would discredit psychoanalysis. Jung feared Freud's narrowness would suffocate the soul. This is why their break was inevitable. They were not just disagreeing on details, they were living out two fundamentally different visions of humanity. Freud believed we are primarily driven by what lies behind us, our past, our childhood, our repression. Jung believed we are also driven by what lies ahead, our destiny, our wholeness, our unfolding self. Freud anchored us in the past, Jung invited us into the future. And perhaps this is the true importance of their difference. It is not merely academic, it is practical. It determines whether you see your struggles as chains that bind you to childhood or as keys that open doors into growth. It determines whether you think meaning is an illusion or whether you trust that meaning is the very thing your soul is trying to offer you. Freud gives you the tools to heal wounds. Jung gives you the tools to discover purpose. In a world that feels fractured and chaotic, don't we need both? So when we talk about the difference between Freud and Jung, we are not just studying history, we are deciding how to live. Will you look only backward, diagnosing the past, or will you also look forward, listening to the whispers of the unconscious calling you toward transformation? That is why their split still matters. It is not just theory, it is a choice each of us faces every single day. Freud's approach left us with a framework that explains human conflict as the clash between desire and law, instinct and morality. It is useful, but it is also limited because it tends to keep us circling around the same wound. Jung wanted to expand the map, and his most powerful contribution was the idea of individuation, the process of becoming whole. To Jung, the unconscious was not only a source of problems, it was also a source of solutions. Inside it lived the very patterns and symbols that could guide a person to healing, if only they would pay attention. He believed that every person carries within them archetypes, timeless roles that emerge in dreams, myths, and even in our daily behavior. When you find yourself drawn to stories of heroes, you are touching the hero archetype. When you feel haunted by someone's betrayal, you may be facing your own shadow. When you suddenly dream of an old teacher or a wise figure, you are encountering the sage archetype. These images are not accidents. They are the unconscious speaking to you in its own language. Freud might dismiss them as disguised impulses, but Jung saw them as doorways to transformation. The practical question is, how can this help you in your life right now? One way is through dreams. Imagine you keep dreaming of being lost in a forest. Freud might trace this back to a childhood fear or a repressed desire. Jung would agree that childhood is part of it, but he would also say, what does the forest symbolize for you? Perhaps it is the unknown, the untamed part of your soul you have not yet explored. The dream is not only showing you your fear, it is inviting you to grow by facing it. Suddenly, the dream becomes not just a symptom, but a guide. Another way is through what Jung called shadow work. Each of us has qualities we deny, repress, or project onto others. For example, you might think of yourself as gentle, but carry a hidden rage. You might see yourself as strong, but secretly feel fragile. Whenever you harshly judge someone else, you are often projecting your own denied qualities onto them. Freud saw projection as defense. Jung saw it as an opportunity. The shadow is not just a monster to suppress. It is a part of yourself waiting to be integrated. When you accept the shadow, you become more whole, more real, more capable of living authentically. Jung also emphasized synchronicity, those meaningful coincidences that feel like the universe is whispering to you. For Freud, coincidences were just random events, but for Jung, they revealed a deeper order, a link between the inner world and the outer world. Imagine thinking of an old friend and then they suddenly call you. To Freud, this is just chance. To Jung, it is evidence that psyche and world are connected in ways science has not yet explained. For many people, synchronicity gives a sense that life is not empty chaos, but alive with hidden meaning. The divide between Freud and Jung also shows up in how they understood suffering. Freud believed therapy was about making the unconscious conscious so that neurosis would fade. Jung believed therapy was about guiding someone through suffering toward greater wholeness. Pain was not only to be lessened, it was to be listened to. If you suffer, it may be the soul's way of drawing your attention to what needs to change. In this sense, Suffering is not just an obstacle, but a messenger. Let's bring this into a modern example. Think of someone facing a midlife crisis. Freud would interpret it as unresolved childhood conflicts resurfacing, desires that were repressed returning with force. Jung would interpret it as the unconscious demanding individuation, an awakening, a push toward a new stage of life, where the person must integrate parts of themselves they had ignored. One explanation leaves you with pathology, the other leaves you with possibility. Which one would you rather believe shapes your own crisis? Jung's vision can feel more hopeful because it does not reduce you to your wounds. It invites you to see your wounds as initiations. The shadow becomes a teacher. The dream becomes a map. Synchronicity becomes a signal. Even the darkest suffering becomes an opening into meaning. Freud helps you manage survival. Jung pushes you into transformation. But this does not mean you must reject Freud. In fact, Jung himself never abandoned Freud entirely. He admitted that instincts and childhood trauma matter. What he insisted was that they are not the whole story. Life is not only a battle with repression, it is also a journey toward wholeness. When you place Freud and Jung side by side, you do not have to choose. You can use Freud to understand the roots of your wounds, and Jung to understand where those wounds can lead you. So as you reflect on their difference, think about your own life. Are you only analyzing the past, trying to manage impulses, patching the holes? Or are you also listening to your unconscious, looking for the symbols, the dreams, the synchronicities that may be pointing you forward? Both are necessary. Both are part of the psyche. Yet the balance between them will shape whether you feel trapped in endless repetition or carried forward into growth. This is why Jung's expansion beyond Freud matters. It changes psychology from a science of survival into a path of meaning. It turns the unconscious from a pit of fear into a source of wisdom. It reframes therapy from fixing what is broken into guiding what is becoming. And for you, sitting with your struggles today, it means you are not only defined by what has hurt you, you are also called by what you are meant to become. Freud's framework tells us much about repression and the weight of the past, but Jung's vision opens the door to practice. What can you actually do with these ideas in daily life? The difference between Freud and Jung becomes clear not only in theory, but in how they invite you to engage your own struggles. Start with self-observation. Freud would have you examine your patterns of desire, fear, and guilt, tracing them back to childhood. That process is valuable. Many of our reflexes are indeed rooted in early wounds. But Jung would have you take one step further, to notice the images, the metaphors, the symbols that repeat in your life. Do you keep meeting people who feel like teachers? Do you keep facing the same kind of disappointment in love? Do you dream about journeys, animals, or houses? These are not random. They are archetypal signals, ways your unconscious is trying to push you toward a deeper awareness. One practical exercise is journaling your dreams. Freud would analyze the hidden wish beneath them, but Jung would invite you to dialogue with the dream itself. Write it down, then ask, what does this image want from me? If you dream of water, maybe it is not just desire. It may symbolize your emotions, your unconscious depths. If you dream of climbing a mountain, it may be the psyche's way of saying, there is growth ahead, but it requires effort. Over time, you will see patterns emerge, and those patterns are maps. Another practice is shadow work. Begin noticing when you feel intense reactions to others, anger, envy, admiration. Instead of asking, what's wrong with them? Ask, what does this reveal about me? That harsh judgment may be your own denied quality peeking out. The irritation may point to something you have not owned in yourself. By admitting, yes, I too carry this, you integrate instead of projecting. This is painful, but it is liberating, because as long as you deny your shadow, it controls you. When you face it, you become whole. Freud might say this is just repression uncovered. Jung would say it is transformation in motion. And the difference is crucial. Uncovering repression is like finding an old wound. Transforming it is like turning the wound into wisdom. Freud could explain why you bleed. Jung wanted to teach you how scars become strength. Then there is synchronicity. You have probably experienced moments that felt like more than coincidence. Thinking of a person and receiving their call. Stumbling across a book that speaks to your exact struggle. Meeting someone at the very time you needed guidance. Freud would call these accidents. Jung saw them as the unconscious aligning with the outer world, as if life itself was conspiring to help you. Whether or not you believe in destiny, paying attention to synchronicity can restore a sense of meaning. Instead of dismissing the strange alignment, you can ask, what is life showing me right now? Applying these differences in your daily life means embracing both honesty and openness. Be honest about the wounds and instincts that drive you. That is Freud's gift. Be open to the symbols and mysteries that guide you. That is Jung's gift. When you combine them, you become not only a survivor, but a seeker. You stop treating your psyche as a problem to manage and start treating it as a dialogue partner. This also changes how you see relationships. Freud's lens may help you recognize how childhood patterns repeat in love and friendship, how you unconsciously choose partners that mirror your parents, how guilt and repression distort intimacy. Jung's lens helps you see relationships as encounters with archetypes. Your partner might awaken your inner lover, your friend might reflect your shadow, your mentor might embody the wise old man. Each person you meet is not only themselves, they are also carrying a role in your psychological journey. If you are willing to see this, even painful relationships can become teachers. Think too about your sense of purpose. Freud might say purpose is an illusion, a mask over instinctual drives. Jung would say purpose is the unfolding of the self, the deeper center of your psyche that wants to emerge. When you feel restless, empty, or lost, Jung would interpret it not only as depression, but as the soul demanding you grow. That shift of perspective changes everything. Instead of asking, how do I get rid of this pain? You begin asking, what is this pain trying to tell me? And that question leads to individuation, the lifelong process of integrating conscious and unconscious, persona and shadow, anima and animus, until you become more whole. Freud's analysis can make you functional, less neurotic, able to cope. Jung's individuation can make you authentic, more aligned with who you are meant to be. That is why their difference still matters. It is the difference between surviving and becoming. So, how do you live this out? Begin by listening. Keep a dream journal. Watch for synchronicities. Notice your shadow. Question your projections. Read myths and notice which characters move you. Speak honestly about your wounds, but also seek the meaning inside them. Every small practice you take is like working with inner alchemy, transforming base material into gold, instinct into insight, suffering into strength. The point is not to choose Freud or Jung as if one must be right and the other wrong. The point is to use both lenses wisely. Sometimes you need Freud's clarity to face your neurosis. Sometimes you need Jung's vision to glimpse your destiny. Together, they make you more human. And as you continue your journey, you will see that the real question is not who was right, but how you can live more fully by learning from both. Because ultimately, this is not just about two men in history. It is about you. The battle between biology and mystery, repression and transformation, past and future, it is happening in your psyche every day. And the choice you make in how you see yourself will shape your life. Will you only manage your instincts, or will you also listen to your soul? That is the invitation Jung leaves you with. It is not easy, but it is where meaning begins. Freud and Jung began their journeys together, but they walked different paths toward what it means to be human. That divergence leaves us with a choice today. How do we take their ideas and let them shape our own transformation? The story is not just intellectual history. It is a mirror for your own life. Freud represents the courage to uncover what is hidden, to name the instincts and repressions that govern us. Jung represents the courage to listen for what is emerging, to honor the symbols and synchronicities that call us toward wholeness. Both voices matter, but it is in their tension that transformation happens. Transformation begins when you stop seeing yourself as broken and start seeing yourself as becoming. Freud helps you understand the fractures. Jung helps you imagine the healing. Together they remind you, you are not merely a bundle of desires or a prisoner of childhood. You are also a soul in motion, shaped by patterns older than yourself and called toward a future you cannot yet see. The act of reflecting on this, on whether your struggles are merely pathology or also initiation, changes how you hold your pain. Suddenly, your wounds are not just scars of the past, they are thresholds to growth. Consider again the idea of individuation. To individuate is to become whole, to bring the shadow into the light, to unite the conscious with the unconscious, to listen to both Freud's realism and Jung's mysticism without becoming enslaved by either. This process is not abstract. It shows up every time you resist projecting your anger onto another and instead own it. It shows up when you stop dismissing a dream as nonsense and instead ask, what wisdom might it hold? It shows up when you face a crisis and ask not only, why is this happening, but also, what am I being asked to grow into? The true transformation is perspective. Freud invites you to honesty, face the drives, the guilt, the repressions. Jung invites you to meaning, see the archetypes, the synchronicities, the symbols. When you bring them together, you begin to live with depth. You stop drifting through life as if everything is accident or instinct. You begin to sense a pattern, a dialogue, a process of inner alchemy where even suffering becomes material for growth. This matters more than ever today. Modern life tempts you to see yourself only as a consumer, as a bundle of habits, as a brain chasing dopamine. Freud's analysis can describe that cycle. Jung's vision can break it open. It can remind you that you are also a seeker, that your dreams, your crises, your synchronicities are not random. They are whispers from the self, calling you toward integration. Transformation is not the erasure of your past. It is the weaving of your past into a larger story. If you accept this, your everyday life begins to shift. A conflict at work becomes not just a frustration, but a chance to meet your shadow. A recurring dream becomes not just noise, but a message. A coincidence becomes not just luck, but a moment of alignment. You begin to live symbolically as well as practically. That is the essence of Jung's psychology and the expansion beyond Freud. It is an invitation to live not only by explanation, but by meaning. So here is the takeaway. Freud teaches you to survive by understanding your wounds. Jung teaches you to transform by listening to your soul. Survival is necessary. Transformation is possible. Both belong to you. When you let these two voices speak, you are no longer trapped between repression and fantasy. You are walking a path of individuation, where the psyche itself becomes the alchemist, turning darkness into light, instinct into insight, and pain into wisdom. And maybe that is why the story of Freud and Jung still lingers, because their debate is your debate, their split is your split, and their reconciliation, if you choose it, can be your reconciliation too. Not choosing one and discarding the other, but learning when to use each and allowing both to guide you toward a fuller, richer life. This is the deeper meaning of their legacy. Not division, but integration. And that integration, lived out in your own choices, is the beginning of transformation. When you step back and look at the journey of Freud and Jung, you can feel that their story was not only about science, but about myth. Freud became the figure of the skeptic, insisting on evidence, demanding we strip away illusion. Jung became the figure of the seer, willing to wander into the forest of dreams and symbols in search of truth. And here you are, standing between them, holding both voices inside you. That is where the real takeaway lies. You are the meeting place of skepticism and vision, biology and mystery, the wound and the wisdom. Think of your own life as a kind of dialogue between Freud and Jung. When you struggle with anxiety or compulsions, Freud's voice helps you see how unconscious drives and repressions are shaping your behavior. That clarity prevents denial. But when you dream of a house with hidden rooms, when you feel that a coincidence carries a hidden message, Jung's voice reminds you that life is more than instinct. It is also symbol. That openness prevents despair. To live fully, you need both. You need to know what has wounded you, and you need to hear what is calling you. This balance is not abstract. It shows up every day. You have a shadow reaction to someone, a burst of anger, jealousy, contempt. Freud would say it reveals a repressed desire. Jung would say it is your shadow asking to be acknowledged. If you only analyze it, you may understand but remain stuck. If you integrate it, you transform. Or imagine you feel stuck in repetition, the same relationships, the same mistakes. Freud might point to unresolved childhood scripts. Jung might say the archetype of the trickster is at play, disrupting your patterns so you can grow. If you listen, you begin to see that even chaos carries a message. The transformation, then, is not choosing one man over the other, but choosing to let their tension work on you. That tension refines you. It demands honesty about your instincts and openness to your soul. It demands that you look backward and forward at once, that you see your life as both shaped by your past and guided by your future. And when you live that way, you begin to sense individuation, the slow, mysterious process of becoming more whole. This is why the story of Freud and Jung still resonates. It is not just the tale of a friendship and a falling out. It is a living parable of what it means to be human. We are always torn between reduction and expansion, between managing impulses and following meaning, between the cellar and the cathedral. That is the drama of the psyche itself. And if you can hold that drama without collapsing into one side, you will find that life itself becomes richer. So let this be your reflection as the video closes. Where are you too much a Freudian, explaining everything away as childhood and instinct? Where are you too much a Jungian, chasing symbols without grounding? And where can you begin to hold both, letting analysis keep you honest and mystery keep you alive? Because perhaps the deepest insight is this: you do not have to choose. You can honor Freud for helping you survive and Jung for helping you transform. You can let survival and transformation work together. That is alchemy. That is the turning of base material into gold. And that is the journey you are already on, the journey of becoming whole. If these ideas spoke to you, stay connected. This space is about more than knowledge. It is about transformation. Share it with someone who might need a reminder that their wounds and their dreams are both part of their becoming. And remember, your unconscious is not only a place of fear, it is also a place of guidance. Listen closely. Your life may be whispering more meaning than you realize. Freud and Jung parted ways a century ago, yet their debate is alive in every therapy session, every late-night conversation about dreams, every personal crisis that pushes someone to ask, who am I really? This is why their story matters, not as dusty history, but as a living compass for the present. You carry both voices inside you. One tells you to be cautious, to analyze, to trace your pain back to its source. The other urges you to be courageous, to listen, to see your pain as part of a larger pattern unfolding. The dance between them is the shape of your own inner journey. Look around our culture today, and you'll see their fingerprints everywhere. Self-help books often echo Jung when they speak about meaning, purpose, or shadow work. Cognitive therapies echo Freud when they talk about unconscious processes and defense mechanisms. Movies, myths, and even advertisements play on archetypes Jung described. The hero's quest, the nurturing mother, the trickster who shakes everything apart. Meanwhile, conversations about trauma, repression, and childhood echo Freud's map of the psyche. Whether you know their names or not, you are already swimming in their ideas. So what do you do with this inheritance? You recognize that you are not just reacting to the past, nor only chasing the future. You are in the middle of a great dialogue between instinct and meaning, biology and myth. To ignore Freud is to risk becoming naive about the power of repression. To ignore Jung is to risk becoming cynical about the possibility of transformation. To embrace both is to become more fully human. And perhaps that is the heart of individuation, the process Jung described as becoming whole. It is not about rejecting one half of yourself. It is about weaving together the skeptic and the seer, the child of biology and the seeker of spirit. When you bring these voices into conversation rather than conflict, you discover a path that is uniquely yours. So let the difference between Freud and Jung do more than inform you. Let it transform you. The next time you feel caught in repetition, remember Freud's insight about hidden drives. The next time you feel drawn to a symbol, a dream, a coincidence, remember Jung's invitation to listen. Between those two moments, you will begin to sense your own alchemy, the inner work of turning suffering into meaning. This is why we return to their story again and again, because it is not finished. It is unfolding in you right now, and the choice is always before you, to reduce life to impulses or to expand life into mystery, to see only wounds or to see also the wisdom hidden within them, to survive or to transform. The truth is, you are not only the echo of Freud or the disciple of Jung. You are the space where their visions meet, clash, and finally blend. And in that space, something greater is being born, the self, the wholeness, the gold that emerges when psyche becomes alchemy. That is not their story alone. That is yours.